Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today with a message that is both simple and urgent. Fix yourself before it's too late. In life, we often find ourselves caught up in the hustle and bustle, distracted by external pressures, societal expectations, and the demands of our everyday responsibilities. But in the midst of all that noise, we sometimes forget the most important thing, ourselves. The truth is, we cannot give what we don't have. We cannot pour from an empty cup. If we neglect our own well-being, if we don't take the time to fix what's broken within us, we will only continue to struggle. So I ask you today, when was the last time you truly looked in the mirror and asked yourself how you're doing? Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Taking time for self-reflection and self-care is one of the most crucial yet often overlooked aspects of living a fulfilling life. In the whirlwind of daily responsibilities, it's so easy to forget about yourself, to get swept away by work, relationships, and the constant stream of obligations. We get caught up in the demands of others, and before we know it, we've neglected the most important person in our life, ourselves. How many of us truly take the time to stop and ask, how am I doing? How many of us are truly aware of the emotional, mental, and spiritual state we're in amidst the chaos of life? Self-reflection is a powerful tool. It's the act of looking inward, taking a step back, and evaluating where you are in your life. It's about being brutally honest with yourself. It's easy to hide behind distractions, to mask the pain or uncertainty we may be feeling, but that only leads to long-term suffering. The longer we avoid reflecting on our internal world, the deeper the wounds can grow. And the more we neglect those wounds, the more they can seep into every other area of our lives, our work, our relationships, our ability to move forward. When we allow ourselves the time and space for self-reflection, we begin to notice things that we might have otherwise ignored. We can uncover suppressed emotions, unresolved pain, or unhealthy patterns of behavior. It's not always comfortable to confront these truths, but it is necessary. If we don't address the cracks within, we risk letting them define our actions and reactions. There's nothing more heartbreaking than realizing that your fears, regrets, or unresolved feelings have been silently controlling your decisions, preventing you from living fully, from being the person you're truly meant to be. Self-care is the natural next step. After reflection comes the action. Self-care isn't about being selfish, as society might sometimes label it. It's about acknowledging that you deserve the time, energy, and effort it takes to heal and nurture yourself. It's about choosing to prioritize your own well-being, because without it, you cannot serve others or lead a fulfilling life. Self-care can take many forms, from taking a walk in nature to seeking therapy, or simply allowing yourself the time to rest. It's about listening to your body, heart, and mind, giving them what they need to feel whole again. It's easy to feel guilt about taking time for yourself, especially when you're constantly surrounded by the needs of others. But the truth is, if you're running on empty, you have nothing to offer. You can't give your best to your family, your friends, your work, or even yourself if you're neglecting your own needs. Self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's not about indulging in selfish pleasures. It's about creating space for your healing, for your personal growth, and for your well-being. By taking care of yourself, you're not only improving your own life, but you're also becoming more capable of being there for the people who matter most to you. It's emotional. It can bring up feelings of guilt, sadness, and frustration, but that's part of the process. As we face the reality of our neglect, we often feel overwhelmed by the weight of everything we've been ignoring. But it's also freeing. The moment you start prioritizing your well-being, you begin to feel lighter. The burden of neglect is lifted, and you allow yourself to begin the journey of healing and growth. Self-reflection and self-care are acts of love. They are a recognition that you matter, your well-being matters, In this fast-pacing world, we often forget to slow down, to check in with ourselves. But the truth is, we cannot move forward in life with any sense of peace, purpose, or clarity unless we first fix what's broken inside. It's not an easy task. It requires courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to be honest with yourself about where you are. But the reward is worth it. The reward is a life lived fully, authentically, and with a sense of peace that can only come from taking the time to nurture the most important person you'll ever know, yourself. We all have heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, but have you ever truly reflected on its meaning? It's a concept that seems so simple, yet it holds a powerful truth. We cannot give what we don't have. In life, we are often so focused on caring for others, supporting our loved ones, and fulfilling our responsibilities that we forget to care for the most important person in our lives, ourselves. We give and give, but if we're not filling our own cup, eventually we will run dry. When we don't take the time to nurture ourselves, to recharge our emotional, mental, and physical batteries, we start to lose touch with our own needs. We become so focused on external demands that we begin to feel empty inside. We may try to keep giving, to keep being there for others, but we can't do it sustainably. When we are depleted, we can only give a fraction of what we're truly capable of. And often what we do give is not of the quality it could be if we were well rested, well nourished, and emotionally balanced. We can feel it within ourselves, like a hollow shell, exhausted, resentful, and perhaps even overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. This emptiness creeps in, and it's heart-wrenching to realize that we have nothing left to offer. The reality is that when we neglect our own needs, when we fail to recognize our limitations, we set ourselves up for burnout. It is a slow and insidious process. At first, we may feel fine, but little by little, the exhaustion builds up. It can affect our mental clarity, our ability to focus, and our capacity to connect with others. Our relationships can start to feel strained because we simply don't have the emotional bandwidth to engage fully. We may find ourselves snapping at others, feeling distant, or even resenting the very people we care about because we've given all our energy away, leaving nothing for ourselves. It's not just about physical energy, it's about emotional reserves. When we don't nurture our hearts, when we fail to acknowledge the pain, frustration, or sadness we're carrying, those emotions don't just disappear. They build up, they fester, and before we know it, they begin to cloud our interactions, making it harder to connect with others. How can we be truly present for someone else if we are constantly distracted by our own unresolved feelings? How can we offer love, kindness, or support when we're too worn out to feel those things ourselves? It's devastating to realize that the love and care we so desperately want to give others is being withheld because we haven't taken the time to fill ourselves with the love and care we need. When we give without replenishing ourselves, we risk building resentment, guilt, and frustration. We start to feel as though no one is giving back to us, even if they are. Our cup is so empty that it's impossible to feel fulfilled. This emotional drain can leave us feeling isolated, misunderstood, and disconnected. The sad reality is that we end up in a cycle where we continue to give, but what we give is not sustainable, and it certainly isn't coming from a place of abundance. We cannot share true love, empathy, or joy if we are devoid of these things within ourselves. To give, we must first receive from within. We must learn to care for ourselves, to fill our hearts and minds with positivity, compassion, and strength. It's a painful but necessary truth. To offer your best to the world, you must first offer it to yourself. You must replenish your emotional reserves, nurture your spirit, and take time to heal. Only then can you give from a place of abundance, from a place where your energy flows freely without expectation, resentment, or depletion. Growth over perfection is a concept that has the power to transform the way we approach life. It's a mindset that embraces the journey rather than focusing solely on the end result. Too often we get caught up in the illusion that perfection is the ultimate goal. We strive endlessly to perfect ourselves, our work, our relationships, and every aspect of our lives, believing that only perfection is worthy of recognition or success. But this pursuit can leave us feeling exhausted, defeated, and at times completely disillusioned. The truth is, perfection is a myth. It's an unreachable standard that only serves to hold us back from our true potential. We focus on perfection, we become paralyzed by fear. The fear of making mistakes, of not measuring up, of being judged. We set ourselves up for disappointment because perfection is inherently unattainable. We see flaws as failures and mistakes as something to be avoided at all costs. This mindset leads to a constant cycle of self-doubt and frustration. We become our own harshest critics, unwilling to acknowledge the small victories, the progress we've made, and the growth that happens in the spaces between perfection and imperfection. It's heart-wrenching to watch ourselves struggle and yet be too afraid to celebrate the journey, simply because we haven't reached some impossible ideal. But growth, true growth, comes from embracing imperfections. It comes from being open to learning, evolving, and understanding that every mistake is an opportunity to become better, stronger, and wiser. Growth means giving yourself permission to fail, to stumble, and to rise again. It's in these moments of vulnerability when we feel like we've fallen short that we discover our deepest strength. It's in the messiness of life, in the struggle, that the most profound lessons are learned. These lessons shape who we are and who we will become. It's the willingness to continue despite setbacks, to keep moving forward even when it feels like progress is slow or unseen. The beauty of growth is that it's not linear. It's full of ups and downs, twists and turns, and unexpected surprises. We must remind ourselves that growth is not about achieving some flawless version of ourselves or our lives. It's about embracing where we are right now and taking the next step, however small it may be. Each small effort, every bit of progress is a victory in itself. Growth isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, resilience, and the courage to keep going even when things aren't perfect. The emotional weight of this truth is profound. It's freeing to realize that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy. We don't have to have it all together to be valuable. Our worth is not tied to how perfectly we can execute every task or how flawlessly we can present ourselves to the world. Our worth is inherent. It's in the effort we put in, the heart we show, and the courage we display in the face of imperfection. When we embrace growth over perfection, we give ourselves the freedom to try new things, to take risks, and to experience life in its fullest sense. We stop measuring ourselves against an impossible standard and start valuing our own unique journey. We begin to see beauty in the process, in the struggle, and in the unfolding of our lives. Instead of judging ourselves for not being perfect, we learn to celebrate our efforts, our resilience, and our commitment to becoming better. And it's through this acceptance of imperfection that we unlock our true potential, the potential to evolve, to learn, and to become the best version of ourselves, not through perfection, but through relentless growth. The urgency of change is something that often hits us when we least expect it, but it's a reality we all face at different points in our lives. Time moves quickly, and before we realize it, the moments that could have been spent transforming our lives are gone. Change is something we can't afford to delay. We often think that we can put off change until a better time or until we feel more ready, but the truth is that moment may never come. And the further we feel more ready. But the truth is that moment may never come. The future is uncertain and time waits for no one. Every day we wait, we lose an opportunity to better ourselves, to embrace the person we are meant to be, and to step into the life we truly desire. It's a bitter reality to face, but it's one that can light a fire in our hearts if we allow it. We live in a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, where distractions and external pressures often drown out the internal whispers telling us that we need to change. Sometimes we ignore those whispers because change feels too overwhelming, too hard, or simply too risky. We convince ourselves that it's easier to stay in the same routine, to keep doing what we've always done, than to take the leap into the unknown. But the pain of stagnation, of staying stuck, becomes unbearable over time. We begin to feel it deep within us. The frustration, the regret, the sadness that comes from knowing we're not living to our full potential, that we're not growing, evolving, and becoming the person we were meant to be. The urgency of change becomes especially clear when we face moments of loss, crisis, or deep emotional pain. In those moments, we are reminded of how precious time truly is. Life is fragile, and we are not guaranteed another day, another year, or another opportunity to make a shift. It's painful to realize that we've let time slip by, that we've wasted opportunities because we didn't act sooner. But it's even more painful to continue living in that cycle, to keep putting off change, knowing deep down that we have the power to create a different future for ourselves. Waiting for the right time can leave us paralyzed in fear, wondering if we're strong enough or capable enough to make the necessary changes. But the truth is, waiting only prolongs the suffering. Change doesn't require perfection, it requires courage. Courage to face the unknown, courage to step into discomfort, courage to embrace the uncertainty that comes with growth. Change is not easy, but it is always worth it. The emotional weight of that decision to change, to finally take action, can be overwhelming. The fear of failure, the doubt, and the pressure to succeed can all feel suffocating. But in those moments of fear, we must remind ourselves that the alternative is far worse. The regret, the feeling of being stuck, the constant yearning for something better that never materializes. That is the true pain of inaction. The urgency of change is not about rushing into decisions recklessly. It's about acknowledging the importance of acting before time slips away. It's about knowing that every day you delay is a day you can't get back. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, for your own life, and recognizing that the only way to move forward is to make the conscious choice to do so. This is not about striving for perfection, but about embracing the discomfort of change and the promise it holds. The process will be hard, and it may feel impossible at times, but the results, emotional growth, inner peace, and a sense of purpose are worth every step you take toward transformation. Confronting your past and present is one of the most emotionally challenging yet crucial steps in the journey of personal growth. It's easy to brush aside the unresolved pain, the regrets, and the mistakes that have shaped us, but pretending they don't exist only prolongs the suffering. Our past, for better or worse, influences who we are today. And if we don't take the time to truly face it, we risk letting it control us in ways we don't even fully understand. Confronting the past isn't about dwelling on the pain or getting stuck in what could have been. It's about acknowledging the experiences, the choices, and the wounds that have shaped us, and understanding how they continue to impact our lives. The emotional weight of confronting your past is undeniable. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the memories, the guilt, or the shame that may arise when you dig deeper into the experiences that hurt you. Perhaps there were moments of betrayal, heartbreak, or failure that you've been avoiding for years. Maybe there are regrets that haunt you, things you wish you had done differently, or people you wish you had treated better. The pain is real, and facing it can feel like an insurmountable task. But what we often fail to realize is that ignoring the past doesn't make it go away. Instead, it festers beneath the surface, quietly influencing our actions, reactions, and decisions in ways that we might not even be aware of. Our past doesn't define us, but it does shape us. If we allow ourselves to confront it head on, we can begin to understand why we make certain choices, why we react in specific ways, and why we might be holding on to old patterns that no longer serve us. It's an emotionally raw process. There's no sugarcoating the discomfort that comes with facing the truth about who we were and who we are. But it's through this confrontation that we find healing. We allow ourselves the space to release the emotional burdens that we've carried for so long. Burdens that may have been weighing us down without us even realizing it. It's about accepting that we are human. And like all humans, we've made mistakes. But those mistakes do not have to define us. Confronting the present is equally challenging. It's easy to be distracted by the busyness of life, to ignore the things that are making us unhappy or unfulfilled, hoping that they'll resolve themselves. But ignoring our present reality only prolongs the pain and prevents us from living authentically. Perhaps there are toxic relationships or situations that you've tolerated for too long. Maybe you're stuck in a job or a routine that drains you, or you're holding on to fears and doubts that keep you from moving forward. The emotional toll of staying in an unhealthy or unfulfilling present can be devastating. It can leave you feeling empty, stuck, and disconnected from your own desires and dreams. When you confront your present, you have the power to take control of your life. You start to recognize where you've been settling, where you've been compromising your own happiness, and where you've allowed fear to hold you back. It's an incredibly emotional process to admit that you've allowed yourself to stay in situations that aren't serving you. It can be painful to acknowledge that you've been playing small, or that you've been afraid to take risks. But this confrontation isn't about shame or guilt. It's about empowerment. It's about recognizing that you deserve more, that you have the power to create change, and that you're worthy of a life that aligns with your true self. Confronting both your past and your present is not an easy task. It requires vulnerability, courage, and the willingness to feel all the emotions that come with it. It's a journey of self-acceptance, of acknowledging that the road to healing is not always smooth, but it's also the only way to free yourself from the grip of past regrets and present dissatisfaction. It's the first step toward truly living a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and aligned with who you are meant to be. Embracing discomfort for growth is one of the most transformative and profound realizations we can have on our journey toward personal development. It's easy to believe that growth should feel good, that it should come with a sense of ease and joy, but the reality is far from this ideal. True growth, the kind that leads to deep, lasting change, often arises from moments of discomfort, challenge, and uncertainty. It's in these uncomfortable spaces that we are forced to face our fears, push beyond our limits, and truly transform. The emotional intensity of this process can be overwhelming, but it's also where we find our greatest strength and resilience. It's natural to resist discomfort. Our minds are wired to seek safety, stability, and comfort, and the unknown can feel frightening. When we encounter discomfort, whether it's in the form of failure, rejection, or stepping outside of our comfort zones, we tend to shy away, wanting to retreat back to what feels familiar and secure. But the truth is, staying in our comfort zones for too long prevents us from growing. We may feel safe, but we're also stagnant. The emotional pain of stagnation, the frustration, the yearning for more, is far worse than the temporary discomfort that comes with stepping into new experiences, even if they make us feel vulnerable, anxious, or unsure. Growth requires us to confront the very things that scare us. When we face discomfort head-on, we learn to navigate our fear, to see it not as something to avoid, but as a signal that we're on the verge of something important. The emotional courage it takes to push through that discomfort is powerful. Every time we embrace the discomfort of growth, we are building resilience. we are proving to ourselves that we are capable of handling more than we ever thought possible. The feelings of fear, self-doubt, and anxiety that accompany discomfort are natural, but they don't define us. They are merely signals that we are stretching beyond what we've known, and that is where growth happens. There's something incredibly emotional about realizing that growth doesn't happen in smooth, easy paths. The hardest moments, the ones that challenge us to our core, are often the moments when we experience the most profound transformation. Whether it's facing the pain of a difficult breakup, dealing with the failure of a project, or pushing ourselves to take a risk we've been avoiding. It's in these moments of discomfort that we truly expand. These are the moments when we find out who we really are, when we discover hidden strengths, and when we learn to trust ourselves in ways we never thought possible. The discomfort we face is often an invitation to become better versions of ourselves. Every challenge, every obstacle is an opportunity to break through old limitations and rise above them. The emotional roller coaster of growth can be intense. There are moments when we feel like giving up, when we question our ability to keep going, when it seems easier to retreat back to the safety of what's known. But it's in these very moments that we must remind ourselves that discomfort is not a sign of failure, but of progress. It's in the struggle, the tension, and the push against our boundaries that we evolve. When we embrace discomfort, we stop seeing it as something to avoid and start seeing it as a necessary part of the process. We stop fearing it and start trusting that it's leading us to something greater. Yes, the emotional toll can be heavy. There will be times when it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, when the pain of growth seems unbearable, and when you question whether it's all worth it. But as you push through that discomfort, you will start to see the changes within yourself. You'll realize that you are becoming stronger, more confident, and more capable of handling the challenges that life throws your way. And in the end, it will be this very discomfort that has shaped you into the person you were always meant to be.